Let's bring in our guy, Teddy Covers, representing Las Vegas, Nevada. Teddy Covers joining us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on the morning shows here at Betting with the Bag, and joining us right now. Please welcome to the show, Teddy Covers. Teddy, how are you doing on this Wednesday morning?
I'm doing all right, Jimmy. How about yourself? Whoa, my head's really big in that camera. And my light's really, hang on, let me change the settings on this. I'm looking real bright over there.
Sure. I did go ahead and make a move, Teddy. I did go ahead and make a move in NCAA football. I'm going to pull up the market move and see if we got ahead of this line. Drew Martin jumped on our show and talked about the UCF Stanford spot. Big Ragu and Big Boss were in our chat. And the first thing that Big Boss was talking about was the star left tackle of Stanford being hurt. We talked about UCF at you could get them at -7, and I did get them on the show at -7. I bet them at -7.5, and with the expectation that this market would be moving in UCF's favor. And let's see if that has happened. Here we go. Where is it? So many games. Where is UCF? I can't find it right now, but I will get it in a second. What do you think of this spot backing UCF against Stanford?
Yeah, let me just check that number for you real quick. There are a million games on tap. For the weekends, if you don't have the number memorized, you're like, yeah, it's on there somewhere.
Oh, there we go. I got it.
Here, I got it on my short list because I have UCF on my short list this week. I'm absolutely the only way I'm going to look. It shows UCF game number 136. And that number right now, the 7.5, and they're 8 starting to pop up. So I do anticipate that line continuing to rise, and I can understand it. Look, UCF is not going to take their foot off the gas pedal in this game. They got Stanford coming to town. They are absolutely focused, and this is a blowout team. UCF is a team that, the offense continues to roll as the game progresses. The question is that offense going to work as well against Stanford's D, but, the difference between Stanford at home week 1 against Northwestern and Stanford on the road at USC last week was night and day. Traveling east, I don't like anything about this Cardinal team. I really don't. I see a program that's been at a very high level that is in gradual decline right now. And when you have a team like that and a program like that that's going south, and they're facing a talented and motivated foe that isn't going to stop punching when they get a lead, yeah, UCF or pass for this better. And it is one that you want to get down on sooner rather than later, obviously, with the left tackle injury for Stanford, as well as their quarterback, who, I'm not a Costello fan to begin with, but it's certainly an issue for the Cardinal.
Oh, I agree. That's I've already locked that in. That's my only play on this NCAA football card. I also added that to my Pick 6 contest, and I got it +7.5 and +105. And I think that if you are trying to cash in the contest, because we give out $1,600 a week, you should find one plus line in your selections. Because what we've seen, the two winners, because a bunch of people went 6-0, but the first place and second place both had one plus line. One was +105, one was +102. So they both end up, in a 6.05 units up for the week, and that allows them to get paid. Teddy, Let me
talk about that for just a second, Jimmy, because that's a really important contest strategy. We talk so much about contest, but proper contest strategy is to give yourself just that little boost to get you over anyone else that went 6-0 that week. So it makes a ton of sense to place something on the money line or to find one dog. And the bigger one you can get, the more likely you are, if you have that perfect week, of actually taking home the money. So that's great contest strategy. I'll give credit to the guys that used that strategy this last week. It paid off.
Yeah, it did pay off. So, yeah, great call. I love backing that strategy. Thank you for adding that in. Teddy, a lot of people in the chat, and in the chat, feel free to send your questions in. I will ask them. But a lot of people in the chat saying, does Teddy have any looks on MLB? We did touch on each and every one of these games. Teddy Covers, do you have any looks on MLB on this card today?
So I did not make a bet in baseball today. The only bet I made yesterday, I'm still frustrated with that game. I bet against the Rockies, and the Rockies managed to score 2 runs and win. Which will happen on occasion, even at Coors Field, but not very often. But I would look to go against the Rockies again today. You talked about Cleveland -1. That was one that absolutely stood out to me on my short list, 2 favorites. And then the other one that I was looking at was the Astros and the A's over the total. It's cashed each of the last 2 days. I wouldn't be surprised if it cash again on Wednesday. So that was my 3-play short list, and I didn't pull the trigger on any of them. My focus at this time of the year is much more on football than MLB. And when it comes to baseball in September, you better be paying attention to the nuance. You know as well as anyone, Jimmy, what teams, who they're playing, what their rotations are. Once you expand those rosters, things look very, very different compared to most of the regular season. And a lot of these big favorites, everyone's talking about, you don't want to bet against the Yankees, you don't want to bet against the Dodgers, and et cetera, et cetera. That was the case all year long. Come September, sometimes you see these teams take their foot off the gas pedal, and that's something that I'll be looking for over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I like it, and I'm trying to get my quantity of plays down. Teddy, I would like to lock in some NFL spots, and I have some questions that I want to fire at you right now.
Go.
First off, charge 2 road favorites, and I'm sitting here going, how do I not back these teams? And I'm also looking at my past record in NFL in week 1, 2, 3, and this is a mistake that I make. Road favorites in week 2. First off, both these spots, and I'm switching also on settings at Sportsbook Review odds page. I'm switching from a Bet Online opener over to a Pinnacle opener because Bet Online, the opening lines for week 2 came out before week 1 started, so they're not really helpful here. So I'm moving over to a Pinnacle opening line for this. Both of these spots, money's coming in on the home underdog. The Chargers and the Bills, Teddy. The Lions look bad and should inspire no confidence. The Giants made Dak Prescott look like a elite passer in the NFL with a perfect passing rating. How do I not take the Chargers and the Bills, Teddy? Should I pump the brakes because I want to pull the trigger now?
Let's talk about the odds page at sportsbookreview.com because, as you mentioned, you can change the feed for who the opener is. It's a really good tool. It's a tool that all of you should be using on a daily basis. I use it. I've got it bookmarked. That live odds page is worth something, and it's something you want to be paying attention to. And the settings are adjustable, which I love. You don't always get that from a free live odds page. Of the 2 road favorites you're talking about, the one that I'm interested in is Buffalo, not Detroit, not LA. But let's take the 2 games individually. Chargers defense got gashed last week. I mean, start to finish, they got gashed. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. The loss of Derwin James is going to matter for LA. And offense makes the highlight reels. Defense cashes your ticket. I didn't see what I wanted to out of the Chargers out of week 1. And the Lions, it's one of those week 1 deals where teams haven't played for 60 minutes. The Lions were comfortably in control of that game. They fell asleep in the 4th quarter against a rookie quarterback who got hot. And that happens. But I did not downgrade Detroit off of that loss or that tie. It felt like a loss. But I didn't downgrade the Lions off of that. They dominated the game. They just fell apart late on the road, which teams sometimes do, especially week 1. So a team that doesn't play defense laying points on the road to a team whose final score wasn't as bad as they played in Detroit, yeah, I can understand why the wise guys are betting the Lions plus in that game. I didn't bet it, but I'm not laying with the Chargers. I know that. The other game, however, makes a ton of sense to me. Here's Buffalo, who rallied from behind. After, they turned the ball over 4 times in the first half against the Jets, and they trailed, 6-0 at the break? That's a defense that's making plays. All right, Bills' defense is real. We saw that all preseason. We saw that last year. We certainly saw it in week 1. When your offense turns it over 4 times, you're down 6-0 at the break. You're doing something right, not wrong. So I believe in the Bills' defense. And Josh Allen, it wasn't pretty. Bills' offense isn't going to be pretty. But they take shots, which I like, and there's some balance there, which I like. And they have a quarterback that can move, which I like. Giants defense, there was nothing to like. They got absolutely gashed. And when we're talking about, Eli Manning versus Josh Allen at this stage of his career, no big advantage for Eli. So Buffalo, of those 2, is the one that I would be much more inclined to lay the points with than LA. One team's playing defense, one team isn't.
I hear that, and the Derwin loss has been huge. Let's go back to the Chargers spot for a second. I'm interested in the over, and so is Comic Ricky and Dom Ricci from our chat. This total opened at 47. It's creeping up. There's 47.5s and 48s are now on the board at a bunch of boards. Actually, they only have 3 47.5s left. What do you think of the over in the Chargers-Lions game, especially with the lack of defense shown by the Chargers last week?
If I was going to play the total, that's the only way I would play it. Again, when you're playing overs, you want overs in games with good quarterbacks. Stafford, Rivers, good quarterbacks. Defenses, don't trust either one. Of course, that's the one that makes sense. I'm not loading up on totals the first couple of weeks of the NFL season, but this is certainly one that I would consider overs on the way I would look.
Yes, I like that. I got anyone asking questions, I will copy and paste them and ask them too. I just need a couple more questions with Teddy on this NFL card. And where do I need, okay, well, there's so many games I want to talk about, but let's talk about, I love the Niners. I understand the Bucks had the flu going through their locker room, things of that nature. But it's a very tough place to play in Tampa this time of year. So hot, so humid. The 49ers don't go back to San Francisco. They go right up to Youngstown, Ohio, and spend the week together without their wives and girlfriends there to focus on football. Their defense looked very, very good. Maybe that's easy to do against Winston, but they did look very good. And the Bengals are taking money. And I just feel like as soon as Jimmy G understood that he doesn't need to take risks because of how strong the pass rush is, how strong the defense is. 49ers now good, that front seven looks. Ford looked so good. With the way the Niners were playing. Also, one thing that was shocking was Mike Evans getting shut down by Witherspoon. Now, maybe Mike Evans was dealing with the flu, but I liked what I saw from the 49ers. But should I be hesitant to back them here in Cincinnati?
So there's a lot to talk about there. I had a very different impression of the 49ers Bucks game than you did. And I had a ticket on San Fran last week and obviously cashed. I thought Tampa played much better than I thought they would. I mean, the Bucks' problem was Jameis Winston. Winston threw some picks. Evans was dealing with the flu. He was nowhere near 100% in that ball game. But Tampa ran the football effectively against San Francisco all afternoon. That's a concern. Jimmy G wasn't sharp. He wasn't sharp at all in that game. That's a concern. The 49ers defense had intercepted a grand total of 2 passes for the entire season last year. Got 3 against Jameis, and 2 of them were returned for touchdowns, and that was the difference in the ball game. But it wasn't San Fran's offense dominating that game. All that said, this point spread is ridiculous to me. It's stupid. I could only take San Fran in this point spread range because the betting markets are betting the box score. And the Bengals had a good box score last week, and the 49ers didn't have a great box score. So they say, oh, look, Cincinnati moved the ball all up and down the field. John Ross, he's scary. All that's true. But the Bengals did what the Bengals do. Andy Dalton doesn't make plays in the red zone since he found a way to lose the game. Zach Taylor looked overmatched in his first game as a head coach, and I don't trust Cincy to win games right now. I love the fact that San Fran stayed out east. I love the fact that they won a game in which they didn't play their best. But, San Fran's the only way I could look at this one. But there were a lot of red flags in that opener from the 49ers that do concern me here. But from a pure value perspective, again, they're betting box scores. The betting markets, when it comes to week 1, it's all overreaction. And I really think they're overreaction about how good the box score for Cincinnati looked. They moved the ball against Seattle. Okay, Seattle's not that good. The money's coming against Seattle already this week.
I like that. I like that breakdown. I know we've got questions coming in about college football, and I want to get there, but I need to hear about a couple more spots. I need to hear what you think of this Bears-Broncos under. I thought it was going to open at 38 and a half. It opened up at 40 and a half. I don't want to make the mistake that we do overemphasizing what we saw in week 1 and letting that skew what these teams really are. There's been no movement on this 40 and a half total. I think I was shocked to see Denver's pass rush and edge rush not show up in Oakland. Is that Oakland's strong offensive line? I mean, time will tell. I was shocked to see Chubb and Von Miller not doing anything. But Trubisky does not look good. These are 2 very strong defenses, I thought. And why is money not coming in on the under? Is it too low of a total in week 2 of the season?
It's the lowest total on the board, by a field goal at least. So it's not like it's this crazy high total. This is the baseline for NFL totals these days. It doesn't get a whole lot lower than 40 unless there's weather issues late in the season. And that's obviously a big difference from where it was, a decade ago. And we would see totals of 34 and a half sometimes in an NFL game. These 2 teams are both built on defense. It feels like a defensive scrum going into the game. Both coaches are defensive minded. Certainly Fangio, you would think, would have a pretty good idea of how to defend Trubisky and company. Certainly Flacco is not a quarterback who's scaring anyone at this stage of his career. It's an under that makes a ton of sense, which, from a betting standpoint, Those tend to go about 50-50. That's some of the problem. Makes a ton of sense that neither of these two offenses are going to move the ball up and down the field, that both coaches are going to take a relatively conservative game plan. But could we see defensive scores in this game? You bet we could. Could we see a big play or two get broke? You bet we could. Both teams have a handful of playmakers on offense. So, yeah, I lean under, but I doubt I get to the betting window with it.
And finally, I expect – now, I know Mosley is such a big piece of this puzzle. And if Mosley's out, I don't know if anybody knows what's going on with Mosley again, and is any inside information for the New York Jets, Mosley. But I see the Browns in a perfect bounce-back spot. Perfect. A little bit of humbling helps. This cocky football team, I think they could bounce back against the Jets on the road. What do you think about this spot?
Mosley is officially a question mark. I have made a bet on the Cleveland Browns. I've advised my clients to make a bet on the Cleveland Browns at 2.5. I'm with you not 100%, 1,000%. Okay. Yeah, Cleveland had a terrible week 1, and maybe they have a terrible week 2. But I look at the Browns on paper and say, if ever there was a spot for a good team, and I think Cleveland is good, to step up and wipe away the stink, this is that spot. They beat the Jets last year. That was Mayfield's first time off the bench. And they were impressive in doing so. The Jets just lost in Noonwood today. That's a bigger loss than I think people give credit for. You talk about Mosley being hurt. Quinnen Williams is a question mark for the Jets. I mean, there's a lot of issues for New York. And again, it's an offense. The Bills turned the ball over 4 times in the first half last week, and the Jets got 6 points. That might be the Jets right now. It's Cleveland or pass for this better. And like I said, I already put the Browns in my pocket, so it's not a pass for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on. I think that little humbling
and the
help.
2.5 now.
Yeah, need to get there fast. And then we have one last question about NFL. Then we're gonna move on to NCAA football, and that's this crazy line: Patriots, Dolphins. I want nothing to do with it. I don't know if it's still minus 19. Let me get there right now. Sorry. Now up to minus 19.5. I mean, this is ludicrous. This is a divisional game. The Dolphins have to have heart after that. Because if you keep losing like that, you can't leave your house. They have to step up to some extent. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to take the Dolphins, but I guess that's would be the only look I would have here. And then I had some interest in a sloppy second half and an over, but I think Patriots just do enough here. There's no reason for them to win 30-0, and traditionally they have a tough time down in Miami. What do you think about this crazy, crazy spot, Patriots-Dolphins?
The single biggest edge that a bettor has over a bookmaker, and it's a real edge, and it's the biggest edge you have, it's the biggest edge I have. The bookmakers have to put a line on every single game. Line, total, first half, all of that. Every game. You and I get to pick and choose which of those lines we want to bet and which ones we have no interest in. Miami is the worst team in the NFL. The worst team in the NFL by a fairly wide margin. The veterans are all bailing. This is not a team I want any part of right now. None. And maybe the markets can. I mean, look, when they're 19-point home underdogs, the markets have clearly caught up with that. I don't trust the effort for Miami. I don't. When you quit week 1 and after the game, every report coming out of that locker room is all the veterans have checked out already. That's a problem. That's not a team anybody wants. And that's why you're seeing a line like this, which is insane. You don't see lines with 19-point road favorites in the NFL. I don't want Miami. I don't want Miami this week. I don't want them next week. The very worst teams are not moneymakers unless they show effort. If they show effort, then there's hope. Miami hasn't shown effort yet. They didn't show effort in the preseason. They didn't show effort in week 1. I do not trust the Dolphins to do anything. And the Patriots will remember what happened the last time they went there, which was, of course, the Hail Mary touchdown for Miami to win the game over Gronk. Which is a play that I'll always remember because they cashed a season win bet for me on the Dolphins. They keep talking about it, but I love that play. And it's just burned in my memory. But New England remembers that too, I'm sure. The Patriots are every bit as good as we thought they were. Are they a team you're in? I'm in any rush to step from? No, I don't want to bet against New England. Is there a ton of value on the Miami side? Yes, there's a ton of value on the Miami side. Am I going to bet it? No, I'm not going to bet it because it's a mismatch of a game. And the Patriots can do, in theory, whatever they want to. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Miami hangs around. Maybe Miami pulls the upset. If I was going to bet the Dolphins, if I had to bet one bet on this game, I'd go for the score and take Miami on the money line. That's what I would do. But I'm not betting the game. It's, that's the type of That's all I would, is a pizza bet on the Dolphins money line saying, yeah, weird things happen in the NFL sometimes. From a real wager on this game, no, you pass, you find another one. At 19, you don't want the favorite, you don't want the dog, not in the NFL.
Yeah, well put. Well put. It's just stay away spot for me at this point, for sure. All right, let's move into NCAA football. We have some questions from our chat, Teddy. First off, our guy, Lou Chase Fox, says, Teddy, talk about the Army game. Do you think they cover the 17? Lou Chase Fox says, I do. Also, Louisiana Tech will smash BG, yes or no? So 2 spots that our guy, Lou Chase Fox, wants to ask you about.
Louisiana Tech, yes. I like Louisiana Tech. They're on my short list. I have not yet pulled the trigger on them. I missed the best of the number. I don't know that I will. It looks to me like a mismatch. And Skip Holtz has actually been decent in the road favorite role. I went back and looked last night, tracked down what his numbers are, and went through game by game, because I really like to look at the game by game. The aggregate numbers don't necessarily do it for me. I want to see what happened. And Holtz, when they're playing a bottom feeder on the road, La Tech tends to be a team I like to take points with, not lay them. When they're playing a bottom feeder on the road, they've actually been pretty good at covering numbers. So that's one that absolutely stands out to me. We need to talk a concept here with Army. All right, here's the concept. When a team plays a great game as an underdog, doesn't mean you want to lay 17 with them as a favorite the next week. All right, yes, Army way overachieved last week. And they did the same thing last year against Oklahoma. They've done well stepping up in class against quality foes because they're able to exert their will on them. And Army's offense is unique, and they can grind clock, slow the game down, and keep everything in front of them on defense to force their opponents to dink and dunk. It's a great strategy for unders, a great strategy for Army as a big dog. That does not mean that Army's going to blow teams off the field as a favorite. They still play the same way. It's a very slow pace. It is not a team that's going to, be running up-tempo offense. So for Army to cover numbers like this, they have to be extremely efficient. You can't have penalties. You can't have field goals. They're not built to cover 17-point spreads as favorites. They're built to cover 17-point spreads as dogs. So Army in this price range, I have no interest. I don't want the dog there. The dog's garbage. That's why Army's laying 17. But when a team covers as a dog one week and then they're laying the next week, we're like, oh, that's a good team. It's a completely different situational spot. And they're coming off a brutal, devastating overtime loss in the Big House. No way I take Army this week. Wouldn't even consider it.
Wouldn't even consider it is the answer. Next up from our guy, Bookie Lover Q. Bookie Lover, and Big Ragoo saying my sentiments exactly last week, past this week from Big Ragoo. So he's backing Teddy's breakdown there. From our guy, Bookie Lover Q, whom I had the pleasure of rolling with in Miami, whom I love. He says, ask Teddy about Buffalo -3 at Liberty. I took Buffalo and Ravens -13 and the over in the pick 6. Ask Teddy about Buffalo -3 at Liberty.
Okay, so Liberty is a bet against team. I bet against Liberty week 1. I should have bet against them again last week. I didn't. But I want no part of Liberty right now, period. So it's a priori a Buffalo or pass. As we've talked a lot in college, I do not want the absolute bottom feeders. Buffalo is an interesting story because the betting markets, the broader betting markets, really thought, last year Buffalo was great. And then they graduated everyone. They graduated the quarterback who went to the NFL. And, they graduated most of their offense and most of their defense. And it was like the cupboard's bare. Buffalo, a team that from one, most of the time we talk about power rating adjustments from one year to the next in college football. For 100 of the 130 teams, there's minimal. And then, there's a handful of teams you get a 2, 3, 4 point adjustment. And then there might be 10 or 15 teams at the most. Excuse me. You're either going to bump way up or bump way down. And Buffalo was one of those teams that they lost everyone. The markets crashed on Buffalo in the offseason. And then we saw last week, maybe the single most misleading final score in college football last week was Penn State 42. Was it 45-13? They won by 32. It was a 3-point game at the half. Buffalo outgained Penn State for the day. So the markets are looking at Buffalo a little bit differently this week than they were last week, which is maybe this team isn't as far down as we thought they were. I don't know whether Buffalo is as far down or not. I do know that Liberty's a bet against. I also know that I'm not excited about laying points on the road with the team that I had coming into the season as one of my top bet against. So they showed something last week. They should win this game. If you're playing, Buffalo's the way to look. but it's not going to make my card this week for that very reason. I don't know that what we saw last week means that Buffalo can actually play, and they're not as bad as we thought they were. I'll find that out at Liberty this Saturday, although even if they win this game, I'm not convinced Buffalo can play. It's just Liberty's pretty bad. Yeah, Buffalo or pass. I wouldn't talk you out of it. It's not one I'm going to make, though.
Buffalo or pass. Black Rogue says all day Buffalo. Prince of the City letting us know it's now -5.5. Our guy Jerry Beatty says, Teddy, what about USM? And Black Rogue says, I love this spot for Southern Miss. What do you think about the Southern Miss spot this weekend?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. What's the freaking game? Southern Miss. I know I looked at it. And I was at Troy. I don't have a strong opinion. I really don't. When I can't think off the top of my head who they're playing, it means it's not a game that I've done a ton of work on yet. So I don't want to give you bullshit. Am I allowed to say that? I don't want to give you nonsense. It's not a game I put a lot of time into. Troy, for me, they were not overachievers in the Neil Brown era, but I worry about the Trojans program taking a step back this year. So in general, they're not a team I'm excited about backing, but I haven't done anything with Southern Miss yet. And like I said, nothing that I've done a lot with. So pass. Sorry.
There's a pass there. And Brandon Lugo liking Southern Miss +2. Right below that, Rod Zawacki says, Jimmy, ask about Maryland as a road fave. And he says, I am taking Maryland. And he's not the only person backing Maryland. Black Rogue says, I'm on the Maryland train as well. What do you think about Maryland as a road fave?
All right, this is college football handicapping 101. All right, it's really, for early season, I can't explain it any other way. Maryland blows out a bottom feeder at home week 1. Looks better than expected week 2 at home against a team with a suspect defense. And now they're going on the road, leaving the friendly confines, and they're laying a premium to a team that's nothing like the first 2 teams they just beat. Temple's going to beat you up in the line of scrimmage. Temple's physical up front. So a team that's dominated week 1, week 2. Maybe Maryland really is that good, and maybe they're just going to roll through the first half of the season, and if you bet Maryland every week, you'll go 5-0 or 6-0 ATS. My experience in Vegas shows that's the exception rather than the rule. The rule tends to be teams like Maryland that blow out opponents at home and they go on the road and face somebody real. They tend to be overvalued in this spot. I could only look at Temple plus the points in that game. Maryland right now, for me, is an overvalued commodity. And if they come out and blow out Temple this week, then the market's going to be white hot on Maryland. I mean, they're already hot on Maryland, as we've seen. It's going to be even hotter if they win this game by margin. So I don't know. The Terps, for me, are a team that, if you wanted to bet Maryland, great. Hope you had them week 1 and week 2. That time is come and gone. When a team stands out in their first 2 weeks, and when their results really stand out, those become hard teams to back moving forward because everyone's all over it. The markets are on it. And at the beginning of the season, everyone pays attention in college football. We get into late October and people are looking at NBA and college hoops and this and that and the other. Sometimes you can find teams that, have really changed their stripes, but the markets aren't quite as locked in on it. That's not the case for the Terps coming out of the gate. Everyone has paid attention to Maryland so far, and that, in my opinion, leaves them overvalued moving forward.
I like that. That makes a ton of sense. We have 2 more questions. One from Suze387 in Hawaii and one from Prince of the City representing Philly. First off, Suze387 says, what does Teddy think about Washington to cover the 21, 21.5, or 22, depending on where you shop, against Hawaii? Washington, big favorites at home against Hawaii. What do you think of that spot?
So the Warriors are not 2-0 again. They've got the best record in the Pac-12 this year, and they're not even in the conference. I don't think they go 3-0. Hawaii gets the receivers that are too small to play in the Pac-12. That's their recruiting base. That's where Rolovich, that's all he does is trying to get the 5'9" guys with speed. If they were 6 foot, they'd be playing at USC or Washington, but the fact they're 5'9", they're playing at Hawaii. Which means that when they face up against an elite defense, and make no mistake about it, the Huskies' defense is elite. I really worry about Hawaii's receivers' ability to get open, and they're not going to move the football on the ground in this game. Their offense has to be those crossing routes and getting guys into space. That I don't know that's going to work against Washington. I mean, their secondary is big and physical, and it creates problems for teams like Hawaii. That being said, laying 3 touchdowns and more with Washington coming off a loss, and last week's game was so weird against Cal, and they had no energy in that contest when the crowd left. It's an awkward spot. My initial lean was towards Washington minus. I'm not going to pull the trigger there. The back door will be wide open in this game if the Huskies pull out their starters, and up 25 in the fourth quarter. Hawaii's a threat to come in through the back door with a late TD. They're not going to quit, and they've actually been good on the road. The conventional wisdom is take Hawaii on the islands, bet against them on the mainland. You've done that in recent seasons. You've lost money. They've been a fairly good road team. So not a game I'm going to bet. My initial lean was towards Washington, but there's enough reasons why I'm not excited about laying this price with the Huskies. So I'll leave it alone.
Interesting breakdown. Sue's 387 agreeing with that breakdown. And then Prince of the City says, Jimmy, ask him Kansas State versus Mississippi State. He liking the over in that spot. And then Matt Randall jumping in saying, I love the over in this spot. What do you think about Kansas City State, Mississippi State?
That is a game that has piqued my interest. I'm interested in the Wildcats plus. I'm interested in the over in that game. I have not pulled the trigger on either one yet. That's a game that I'm going to do some work on today. And tomorrow, I'll let you, if you ask me tomorrow, if you remember to ask me tomorrow, I'll let you know if I actually pull the trigger or not. But Kansas State is on my short list. The over is on my short list. I wouldn't talk you out either one on Wednesday, though I might try to talk you out of one of the two tomorrow.
I like it. I will remember to ask you for sure. I'm a copy and paste machine over here, Teddy. Big Ragoo says, what about this huge total on Washington State, Houston, 75.5? Big Ragoo says, I like the under. And then Black Rogue says, Ragoo, yes, I like this under as well. Huge high total, 75.5, Washington State, Houston.
You're not going to get me betting the under in this game. Look, we know what Washington State's going to do. All right. Mike Leach hasn't changed his stripes. They want to throw the ball 60 times against Houston, and Houston's defense was bad last year, and it hasn't impressed me so far this year. I think Washington's going to get their fair share. Washington gets in the 40s in this game. I'll say Washington gets 240 and above. The question is whether Houston can trade points with them, and I think they might be able to. Again, we got Holgerson, guys. We know what this is going to be. Fast, up-tempo, lots of plays. It's the game where we could see, 170 plays run in this game. 160. I wouldn't play under in this game. I would expect both teams to be taking shots and both teams to be throwing the football all over the field, which means lots of incomplete passes. And it's such a difference when there's 60 incomplete passes versus a team that's running and the clock just runs and runs and runs. When the clock doesn't run, you're getting 4 or 5 drives each quarter. Lean over in that one. I would not want the under.